Have you ever had that feeling deep in your gut that something is just off? Not the kind where you forgot to lock the front door. I mean the kind of primal unease that creeps in when you sense the life you worked for is about to flip upside down. For me, it wasn't some sudden bang or an obvious disaster, just this beat. A deep thumping bass line shaking the floor of my study, rattling the spoon in my cup of Earl Grey, the kind of sound you feel in your teeth. See, I'm a retired civil engineer. I like things measured, orderly, quiet. I chose Glenview, this quiet suburb just outside Chicago, because it promised peace afternoons lost in books or tending to my garden. Not DJ beats that sound like a washing machine dying a slow death. I set my tea down, listening as the music vibrated through my house, then walked over to the back window to see who decided my backyard was their personal nightclub. What I saw was Carol Donaldson's pool in full swing, balloons everywhere, half the high school splashing in her pool and a swarm of parents knocking back champagne. Fine, it was her son's graduation, Bryce, decent enough kid. And I can put up with a little chaos for a milestone. But the more I watched, the worse it got. People were milling around, not just on Carol's side, but on mine, grown adults, trampling my freshly nursed azaleas, some woman in a floppy sun hat, leaning against my Japanese maple. That maple was the first thing I planted, after moving in memory of my late wife, Helen. I stood there, jaw clenched. Tolerance has limits. Mine just got trampled by a woman in overpriced sandals. Carol had a way about her gliding through life on a cloud of entitlement and some kind of discount perfume, never missing a beat when it came to letting everyone know who ran things. 8 months before, when I just moved in, she didn't even say hello, didn't bring over a pie, nothing. She just marched over and let me know, finger-pointed that the HOA rules said my garbage bins had to be out of sight, then spun on her heel and left me there in a driveway stacked with moving boxes. That was my introduction to Carol notes about my grass, complaints about my garlic, even a dig at the color of my doormat, always delivered with the kind of icy politeness that's worse than yelling. I'd just smile, nod, and do things my way as long as the law backed me up. But Carol was persistent, and 2 months in the real game started. An official-looking letter showed up, bylaw violation, unapproved fencing, improper use of common area. Carol claimed the back third of my yard was really a community easement. My fence was an illegal structure and I had 30 days to rip it out or face fines. I almost laughed. 40 years as a civil engineer in Chicago had taught me a thing or two about property lines. I had every deed, plat, and survey a man could want. I called up the HOA's management company, got Brenda, a woman, who sounded like she'd had her fill of active board members. She couldn't find a record of any easement. I made it clear the fence stays and any fines get fought in court. And to make it airtight, I shelled out for a brand new survey, stakes, flags, the whole works. The surveyor showed up, and sure enough, Carol couldn't resist. Out she comes, pink tracksuit, barking about community property. Gus, the surveyor, wasn't having any of it. He showed her the pin clear as day, 2 feet over the line on her side. Turns out a good chunk of her roses weren't even on her property. When the certified survey arrived, I delivered a copy to Carol myself. She barely opened the door, tore the survey in half, and slammed it in my face, muttering about fake documents and how I was ruining her neighborhood. I just picked up the pieces and went home because the facts were on my side, and sometimes all you can do is let reality do its work. For a while, things got quiet. Carol stopped with the notes, started giving me the silent treatment, which was honestly a step up. I sent the survey to the HOA office, and from then on, my mailbox stayed blissfully free of angry letters. Spring rolled into summer. My garden bounced back. I built a model Brooklyn bridge out of balsa wood, and Carol just stayed busy planning whatever her next event was. Book clubs, charity lunches, her son's graduation. I kept out of it. I overheard her telling someone not to worry about me. He knows his place now. Sure, Carol. But then came the day of the graduation party, the day the quiet ended. I made plans to be out, have lunch with an old buddy, anything to avoid the ruckus. When I got home, the block was lined with SUVs, my lawn used as a parking lot, and the real show was out back. There were at least 50 strangers on my grass, a bar set up on my azaleas, teenagers trampling my vegetable garden, and the DJ's speakers pointed straight at my house. It wasn't a mistake. It was Carol's way of proving she could do whatever she wanted. I walked into my house, put on my best suit, because in my experience, nothing says business like a man in a suit where he's not expected to be one. I gathered every document, the deed, the survey, my ID. took a breath, thought of Helen, and walked out back into the lion's den. The crowd parted. Carol's face went from smug to confused. I told her calmly, "This is trespassing. The party needs to end. Now." Of course, she made a scene, dragged her son Bryce over, who parroted his mom's anger while Carol accused me of harassment in front of everyone. She grabbed her phone, called the cops, painted me as some dangerous intruder on my own land. When the officers showed up, two professionals all business, I presented my folder, explained the situation, and let the facts speak. Carol tried to keep up the act, but Officer Miller just looked at the documents, checked the survey stakes, and told Carol and the crowd they were trespassing, not me. But here's where the twist comes in, the one you can't make up. Officer Ramirez, after a quick radio check, announced that Carol had an outstanding warrant, a felony for check fraud, something from years back in DuPage County. The whole party froze as the police cuffed the queen of the neighborhood right there, her son staring, friends backing away, the party turning from celebration to spectacle in a heartbeat. Once the dust settled, Carol was gone, jail time house sold. New family moved in next door. The HOA turned over to people who actually cared about the community, not just about control. Life returned to what I'd hoped for: routine peace, a garden where the only drama was whether the tomatoes would survive a hot summer. But like any engineer will tell you, cracks sometimes form under the surface before things collapse for good. Months later, a letter arrived. Carol, now out of jail, apparently living with her sister, was suing me for $500,000. Emotional distress, defamation, malicious prosecution. She claimed I'd orchestrated her arrest, ruined her life. I called Bill Peterson, my lawyer, a sharp old bulldog who hated frivolous lawsuits. He laughed when he read the complaint. "We could get this dismissed easy," he said, "or we can go nuclear and show her what real discovery looks like." I chose the second option. We countersued for malicious prosecution and legal fees. As part of discovery, we demanded every document from her time as HOA president. That's when Bryce, her son, showed up on my lawn, older, tired, and apologetic. He told me things about his mom's finances, how even his dad suspected she'd been shifting money around for years. Armed with this, I went through the HOA records, a mountain of invoices, canceled checks, consulting payments to companies that didn't exist, fake landscaping firms, shell companies in her maiden name. Over $60,000 stolen in plain sight. Every penny documented, every check traced. When Bill confronted Carol with the evidence at her deposition, she crumbled. Her lawyer dropped the suit on the spot. We handed the files to the HOA board, and this time they turned everything over to the police. Charges followed: felony, embezzlement, mail fraud, the works. She lost everything, and this time there was no neighborhood to defend her. Now, as I sit on my porch watching my neighbor's kids play, working on a model Eiffel Tower, I finally have the peace I wanted. Justice didn't come in some Hollywood moment. It came slow, steady, built on facts and patience, just like a well-measured fence. Sometimes you just have to wait for people to show themselves for who they really are and let the world or the law catch up. So let me ask, have you ever had a neighbor like Carol? Someone who thought the rules didn't apply to them? Drop your stories in the comments. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that justice can be slow, but when it arrives, it's worth every second of the wait. And if you've ever stood your ground, even when it was hard, trust me, you're not alone.